All right. A little bit of introductions to folks that are here. We've got that done with. So now we're starting to record our session, which is part 2 of running CFEngine on IoT devices. My name is Craig Comstock. I'm a digger at CFEngine, aka software engineer. And then I'll let Nick and Cody announce themselves.
I'm Nick. I am doer of things at CFEngine. I touch a lot of things. Been using CFEngine for a long time, and I think policy is one of my favorite things.
Hi, my name is Cody. I'm more on the community side of things, so more sales and marketing versus technical. Yeah, glad to be here.
Cool. And we have several guests here. So the structure we've been doing for a little while is a little meet and greet at the beginning. I go through, or somebody goes through a presentation of some sort for about 15, 20 minutes. We ask some questions, and then we stop the recording and have kind of a unstructured social event, I think is what somebody else called it. So just, you can ask questions, and eventually I think we'd like to see more and more people show up and just ask questions of Nick. And so we can just spend the whole time talking about policy if we want to, which is really cool, or sysadmin kind of things or whatever. So for today, this is part 2. So part 1 was me showing how to build an image with Yocto, a Linux image builder. And there's already CFEngine, what they call a meta, there's a meta layer for Open Embedded, which provides CFEngine as a recipe. So each package is a recipe. And so that's a kind of an older version, community version. And I showed how to build that, run it on QEMU, which is the emulator on a local laptop. So you don't need any hardware. It's really easy to get into it. You could probably use like a virtual box using Ubuntu is probably the best idea, because Ubuntu is kind of the first set of instructions, so probably best tested. I ran into problems trying to do it otherwise, so I just gave up and used Ubuntu. And then, that's kind of where we ended with the last one. Now, part 2, we're going to look at, I upgraded to 3.18, which is our latest LTS release, so we're using kind of the latest code. I also added our enterprise client, so we can do reporting up to a hub, a mission portal. And also using Raspberry Pi hardware, so actual hardware, and taking measurements. So one of the ideas that we have is like, well, there's all kinds of things you can do with IoT. So what I did was I decided to make a desk height sensor. This is an ultrasonic sensor here to monitor. Both Nick and I have desks that move up and down for our health. And I made a desk height sensor. And so the idea is to monitor our desk height and kind of see a graph, of course, because everybody that's at a higher level of management wants to see a graph instead of anything else. So we are the higher managers of our own physical bodies. Okay, so let's get to it. See if I can get out of this thing. Oh, there we go. Okay, that's the splash screen. And now, so the first thing we want to look at is we're in this Pocky, I don't know how to pronounce it. So this is, oops. Can you see my screen okay? Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. And actually, maybe I'll bump up the font just slightly just to make sure it's nice and easy. Okay, so we're at this thing that we checked out. Source this file. I'm going to look at the conf that I have. So my BB layers, I've added Meta Raspberry Pi and Meta CFEngine. And so Raspberry Pi provides hardware support for Raspberries, and this Meta CFEngine is a kind of alpha work in progress that I have for building enterprise client. And then I'll look at the local conf and for things that say append. And so as before, we talked about how we need proc PS for CFEngine in order to have it work with promises. We don't understand BusyBox in the right way with the make files and such. We do understand BusyBox style PS commands, but it's just hard to build it that way. It's designed for Android, actually, which is not really something that we do a whole lot of anymore. Anyway, so the additions here are CFEngine master files and CFEngine Nova. Honestly, I actually don't even really need this because I'm going to be bootstrapping to a hub. So this is the addition that we're making, the CFEngine Nova. I also ran into some problems with one set of policies. So I added in strace and GDB, and that's pretty awesome. So now I can try to debug kind of what's happening in a binary. Okay, so that's that. And then to build, and so I'm going to build for a Raspberry Pi Zero, which I have one right here. One of the things I did to make it a little easier is I used this CDC Ethernet device, which basically allows you to plug this in to a USB port on your laptop, and it provides an Ethernet device on your laptop. So I've got this running right now, right here, and it's configured for a static IP address. So you kind of have to set up your stuff, and then you can boot up the Raspberry Pi Zero and get it going. So anyway, so the command to build it is you say which machine you want, in which case Raspberry Pi Zero, bitbake, core image minimal, because I'm a minimalist, and then it goes and builds it. I've already done this, so it's gonna build nothing because everything's all good. But it can take quite a long time depending on your machine and your internet speeds, because they build a whole bunch of stuff, like something like 3,000, here we go, yeah, 4,000 packages, and they pretty much pull down everything from Git and compile it, kind of like, what is that operating system you use, Nick?
Gentoo.
Gentoo, yeah, it's kind of Gentoo-like. Yeah, so we've got, let's see, if I look over here in the open embedded and recipes, where is that? Meta, OE, that's right. And then recipes extended, CFEngine is where our CFEngine business is. And here we have, there's a lot of very stringly kind of things that work in the Octo. So like the file name of this thing actually says the package and the version, and that's where it gets it from. So there's no like specific things there. And basically you'll see in here, basically this is the version here, and then I've got the checksum. So that's really all I had to do to get 318 working, is just kind of adjust the version. And then for enterprise, I've got this Meta CFEngine, recipes CFEngine, CFEngine Nova 318, which uses the copy of our enterprise code, which is closed source and just checked out locally for me. So that's us getting that. And then after I do that, I have to flash the image onto an SD card, like so. Let's see. So let's see. I think I've got that one's there, and that one's there. There we go. So you flash that image, and then you can take that image out and put it into your Raspberry. And you do have to specify different machines. Here I was building for a 0, a 2, and a 4, because I've got all 3 of those types. And then my flash script was having different, say, put the card in, like that. So I could just flash all 3 at once. And let's see, let's check to see where this is at. So I've got this is the USB to the Raspberry Pi Zero. I'm going to go ahead and SSH over to my Raspberry Pi 2, which is this one right here. And I've got my hardware here for the ultrasonic distance sensor plugged in to here. I had to make a little voltage divider to the signal coming back from this sensor is 5 volts. And so I needed to bump it down so that it's safe for the Raspberry Pi at 3.3 volts. It looks like, let me double check here. So these things, I've already got them bootstrapped up to my mission portal here. And, oh, and of course, demos being what they are, it's not working. So what I'll do is I'll just turn it back on. I think maybe I powered it off accidentally. So we can get over to the Raspberry Pi Zero. So the Raspberry Pi Zero is connected locally. So I can, oh, here we are. And this is Yocto Linux. We've got the enterprise client. So the community client will report this, and then the enterprise client will report the enterprise version. And so, yeah. So
how do you know that this is a Yocto built system? Like from inside?
Yeah, that's, I'm not sure actually, strangely enough. And I made a ticket actually for adding a class for Yocto. I don't know that it's terribly interesting or necessary, really, because it is just basically Linux, and you can have all the kind of normal things like, you know, just systemd, all the fancy things. You can have all those things. So, yeah, I don't know, actually.
Maybe there's not a specific way already.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know, maybe there's something in, yeah, I don't know. Is there something in here? Yeah, it's interesting.
It'd be fun to learn sometime.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's like nothing in any there, so yeah. Yeah. So a couple of things I had to adjust here were like the networking interfaces, setting up the USB Ethernet stuff. I had to add this auto USB because I wasn't turning on the interface. And without that, I got to go find a keyboard and a display and all kinds of stuff to plug into the Raspberry Pi Zero. So it's kind of a pain. This has made things really nice. And this is stuff you can do too, this RNDIS gadget. You can do this with like a Debian, what do they call it, Raspbian, all kinds of different distributions. You can just edit the, in the SD card, you can mount anywhere on a laptop. You can change like a command line.txt and a boot. I think it's like a config.txt. You can just add these things in there. It's really easy. So it's pretty nice the way they have that set up. So we have the enterprise client. We've got the Raspberry Pi hardware. And here, let's check. I have a little bug where everything's in var libntech. It's an automake problem, I think. And it looks like this is actually bootstrapped successfully to my hub here, mission portal. And let's see if we can find. Okay, so it looks like the Raspberry Pi Zero. Oh, wait, I actually changed the host name. I delivered the same image to Nick, and I realized that the host name would be the same. And we were both trying to bootstrap to the same hub, demo hub that we have. And I figured I better change the name. So maybe it's here. Oh, it's not. Okay, never mind. So maybe it's not quite done reporting. Let's see what things are running here. Oh, okay.
So
we have another problem with agents backing up. So I'll do this. And I think it has something to do with it. The client on Yocto is using a different database called Tokyo Cabinet instead of Lightning database. So it's essentially very untested. And, you know, we've been working almost exclusively with LNBB Lightning database for years now. And so that's actually one of the things I had to do is I had to fix up some bugs with even building the things for Tokyo Cabinet. So yeah, we need to think about where we want to go with those things. And Yocto on the master branch supports LMDB, so likely we could just kind of work on the master branches of things and maybe have the better luck there. So looks like I'm still got lots of things. So what I might do is just I might just reboot it. It won't be too bad. So we've got those. This is kind of the stuff I was looking at on my laptop to make sure that the gadget was there, the Ethernet. And so here again, we'll probably be able to see when the Raspberry Pi comes back up. I see the blinking lights now. So, and there's the USB Ethernet device. So now I know it's booted up. Now I have to configure it. I'm pretty sure it's this one. And like I said, there's static IP addresses here. So the Raspberry Pi Yocto is set to 7.2 and expects 7.1 to be the gateway. So I do that. I have a script to do IP tables masquerading so that the Raspberry Pi Zero can get to the internet through my laptop. And then I should be able to SSH into this. It does take some time for the Raspberry Pi Zero to start up, especially with like SSH and whatnot. So there's also an issue where really helpful operating systems have a tendency to grab the thing and mess it up for me. So I gotta maybe do that whole sequence again. Yep, I do. There we go. Might be able to get there yet. Okay, so we'll just have to wait on that one. I believe I got, this is, let's see, I'll get over to the other one here. See if we can get to the other one now. This other IP address is the Raspberry Pi 2, as you can see, which is running essentially the same image. This one has the actual distance sensor, so I can run.
Gotta set up first, right?
I do have to set up, you're right. So I have a setup script. So what I'm using here is CFS to do GPIOs, since it's not terribly difficult to do this. So I have the distance sensor plugged into a couple of pins. I set up by exporting these two pins, telling which direction they go. And then I can run this Python script, which measures the number of centimeters from my sensor to the next flat object. And the Python thing is pretty straightforward. I just have the two paths for the values in the sysfs for the two pins. Trigger is a signal I send out to make the sensor start. Echo is a return, which basically the way it works is it sends out a signal, takes a certain amount of time to go from here to there ultrasonic with sound, and then it sends a signal of that same time length on the echo path. And then you use some math to figure out how far away that is. So there's some stuff to initialize it. And then down here, there's some math to figure out how many centimeters. I put a couple of things in here to make it stay within a range. And that's basically that. And then the fun part is we have a desk height policy, which has a measurements promise, which CF Monitor D is our monitoring daemon that runs and collects data. So I had to give it this, this is a little change from what you have, Nick. So I wanted to make so here I'm running the distance pi and then setting standard error to a log. So this just runs that script. And that way I can have diagnostics as it goes for each run. So this handle is here. Stream type pipe is what we need to do if we're running a command versus having measurements look at a file. And then this is mostly just basically kind of boilerplate. Nick could probably explain more of it if you wanted to.
Yeah, the data type there is just like, the type of value that you're
Right.
going to expect versus float. The history type weekly is what causes all the averaging to happen so that you end up getting mon vars named, mon dot handle. So mon dot desk underscore height. And then you've got dot,
like this here,
dot value, dot average, dot standard deviation. So from within the agent, you have the information about like, what your last measured value was, what the average measured value is, what the standard deviation is. So you can react based on that stuff kind of immediately. And then in enterprise, it'll collect that stuff up to the hub, and then it'll, make some graphs from it and things like that.
So yeah, we can go over here to my Raspberry Pi 2. And these are all of the built-in. We have a whole bunch of built-in kind of standard stuff. You can come to it from here, this host information, or you can go to this measurements app. And then you get the tree of devices in your setup. And then here I've got Raspberry Pi 2. So we should be able to see. Now I've got a bunch of not available here. It's because I've been hacking it, so it's kind of messed up. But if we look at, say, like, we can look at desk height. So it's got some historical data from when it was working just a few days ago before I started tearing it all apart. So we do have some information here, but the past week, you'll see that we've got some information of my desk going up and down and halfway and up and down and whatnot. So there's a graph. We have the pretty graph.
And you
that tells
sat
me
all weekend.
Well, okay, yeah. So one of the things I did was just for fun. I was making it so that like on the weekends it was like horrendously high, like yeah. So like this is the weekend, right? And then I put it down to like 0. This might actually be just, it was like I think I killed it right about here actually. So this is just like no data essentially. And then here we have a little bit more that I've collected when it was still kind of, oh, I know what this was. I think I unplugged everything on the weekend. I do like to do that actually. Just unplug things, even if it's a Raspberry Pi that draws almost no power. It's just like, just turn it all off. So yeah, we got what we wanted. We got charts of my desk health. And Nick and I are starting a fake company just for this purpose called, we don't know if it's a health desk or desk health. I think desk health may be easier because people might think it's saying help desk. But
I know, but that's the fun part.
It might be the fun part, yeah. So then, yeah, like standard measures, like CPU, those are all built in. You don't really have to do anything to get them. Temperature is probably a pretty interesting one. This one I thought was really interesting because essentially what I saw is that the Raspberry Pi kind of had probably an offset above ambient temperature. So you can see like it's, it gets warm in the day, cold at night, warm in the day, cold at night, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this is like a historical weather chart here.
Can you pull up, do you have a data for the SSH in?
SSH
or
SSH in?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
So like this is one of the practical things, right? So you can use this data. I mean, there's nothing interesting here, I guess. There you go.
Yeah, there's a bump,
There's a little
right? So you know that it happened, right?
Right, you know that it happened, but the things that you can use this for practically, right? So if people are actually not working on the weekends, right? You can use this data to say, hey, oh, I see that like the the number of connections in or whatever, or the average number of connections during the weekend is higher than it should be or whatever. And then you can automatically react on that. So you can just, firewall your stuff off if all of a sudden it seems like your production hosts have a whole bunch of like unexpected traffic. It's not a maintenance period. It's not something else. You can just kind of respond to that stuff automatically.
Right. Yeah, and then you can do that with several different measurements that we have, like IO and network and stuff like that. Yeah, cool. And you could add in new ones. So we've got some documentation here, measurements in our docs, and it explains how to write the measurements promises for CF Monitor D. We also have some explanations of kind of how it all works, where to go if things aren't working the way you expect them to. Yeah. And that really is it. I think if we, we might have a next time. Next things that I wanted to do were to work with Mender.io to do over-the-air updates of these images. Nick and I could share, because since we both have these devices, I could make some new images maybe, and then I could ship them out to Nick. And we also want to do things like pre-authorize like SSH keys, pre-authorize and these are all things you can do and very common to do with like production on Yocto. Pre-authorize the security between the hub and the client for CFEngine. And, these kinds of things we can do. So it's pretty cool stuff, and I want to definitely carry on with it.